Chapter 1. Big Think and the Trojan Horse. Geneva, Switzerland. I am in the front seat of the taxi. In the back seat, two partners of a certain world-famous consulting firm that advises clients on strategy. We are heading to the airport after several days of intense work on one of their projects. We really have a tough time thinking big, the conversation starts. We have great analytic tools, the senior partner explains. If you give us a problem, some market data, a map of your supply chain, whatever, we can dig in better than anyone and tell you how to optimize your current operations. But sometimes, clients want something completely different. Sometimes, they give us a blank slate and ask for bold new ideas. That's when we get really uncomfortable. I have heard this many times, not only from consultants. Business leaders tell me that they want to think big. They know their organization's growth, and in some cases its survival, depends on big ideas. Every success story they read or hear about involves a company led by bold thinking that has changed the marketplace to create new opportunity and new value. Interspersed are stories of once great companies, Kodak, Xerox, Levi Strauss, AOL, that fell into painful and seemingly irreversible decline. They want a Trojan horse, I respond. They look at me confused. Remember the Greeks, Odysseus and Agamemnon? Agamemnon led the greatest army of the ancient world, but for 10 long years he was unable to pierce the defenses of Troy's walled city. Along came Odysseus with the idea of offering the Trojans this giant wooden horse, ostensibly as a peace offering, but actually concealing Greek warriors inside the horse's hollow belly. The Trojans brought the horse inside their own walls. The Greek soldiers sneaked out, threw open the city gates, overwhelmed the city, and won the war overnight. That's big think. They agree. Great metaphor. I continue. For me, the lesson of the Trojan horse for business is simple. Business leaders must free themselves of strategic planning processes that yield incremental results. They must take a truly creative approach to strategy development and execution. We reach the airport. As I gather my luggage from the trunk, the junior partner asks, "Don't you have some methodologies and tools that we can use? Sort of plug into our projects and then a big strategy just pops out?" Big think versus small think. The chief executives, department heads, and entrepreneurs with whom I speak all say they need big and bold strategies to compete. They tell me they want to think out of the box, develop disruptive strategies, and execute in bold strokes that shake up markets. So the leaders all want to think big. Why don't they? Because their organizations are trapped in a mode of small thinking that kills creativity right from the start. This kind of small think is characterized by inertia and resistance, narrow-mindedness and risk aversion that stifle true innovation. Small think is built into the siloed structure of most companies: manufacturing, marketing, sales, finance, human resources, service, and research and development. These silos operate independently and view each other as rivals, not only for internal resources, but also for talent and customers. From the tops of their functional silos, managers see only a narrow slice of the business and their short-term potential within it. Small think is sticking with the status quo and the same old procedures, planning tools, strategy maps, and research reports, even when they fail to produce bold ideas. Small think is being held hostage to the next quarterly earnings report. Small think is reactive and incremental. Why does small think dominate strategic planning in so many organizations? Small think is known territory. Small think is what managers get paid to do. Why stick your neck out when you do not know whether a new idea will actually work and whether you will get internal support to try it? Managers are rarely blamed for doing again and again what they have done in the past. If a brand or a business unit or an entire company must make a new move, the leader's safest choice is always the most certified, market-tested direction that dozens of other companies have no doubt already taken. Small think is easy. Those who pursue a bold new idea, especially for longer than a fiscal year, often get no reward or recognition because the company's incentive system is set up for predictable, short-term, even quarterly results. Obviously, this kind of status quo is hazardous to the long-term health of any organization. Executives at every level seem to realize the disconnect between such standard small think procedures as annual budgeting and performance appraisals and the big thinking needed to achieve growth in a changing environment. Big think differs considerably from small think. Big think is a creative and visionary thinking and leadership style that leverages bold ideas and actions. Big think organizations are integrated around a few core ideas that produce lasting impact. Where small think deals with the known, the pre-tested, and the pre-chewed, big think faces challenges creatively, reasoning about them from new angles and generating innovative ideas and actions to solve them. Big think does not just occur in the head. It involves action, managing people and teams, and driving organizational change. It is not simply creating something new. It is behaving differently. Big think is a style of thinking and leading. It is not something you get to by just collecting all the usual reams of business data, checking off your management boxes, and following a flowchart for decision-making. Big think has its own more creative methodologies and tools for idea sourcing, evaluation, strategy development, and execution. Big think brings creative processes into strategic planning. Big think is not just about brainstorming. Big think does not yield pie-in-the-sky ideas, but creates detailed strategic plans that capitalize on real-world opportunities. Where small think is compartmentalized into silos, big think rallies the whole organization around a few core ideas. Big think aims for lasting impact. It creates new business models, disruptive technologies, and products and services that either change consumer behavior or accommodate an already changing behavior. Big think alters the nature of competition. Once it is implemented, a particular industry is no longer the same. There is no going back. Big think transforms consumer expectations, preferences, and experiences. It changes how we shop and buy and live and work. Since Starbucks, we can hang out in a third place that is neither home nor office, but superior to other coffee shops. Since IKEA, we can easily shop for and assemble our furniture. Since Google, we can actually seek, find, and consume the sought-after information and discover more that interests us. Big think and business success. Finding business examples of big think is not difficult. Every recent iconic business success belongs to visionaries who used big thinking to transform not just their company, but the marketplace. You know them well. The iPod did not succeed simply as a product. It transformed the music industry, revived its parent company, Apple Incorporated, and changed how consumers organize, customize, and manage their music experience. In 2001, the music industry was trapped in inertia, narrow-mindedness, and risk aversion. The entire industry engaged in a self-destructive fight over digital rights, bickering endlessly about formats while its future revenue stream, the Napster generation, was learning to love digital music as a freebie. As an industry outsider, Steve Jobs could envision a device that combined the portability of an MP3 player, the organizing principle and service of a Napster, and the storage, programmability, and user-friendliness of an Apple computer. The iPod, with its seamless design, single-handedly created a mass market for MP3 players. With Apple's iTunes online music store, Jobs broke the deadlock over digital music distribution, coaxing the major record labels to offer their music for sale online. By 2006, Apple held a 74% U.S. market share in digital music players and was selling 100 iPods a minute, many of them in the newly created Apple stores. The iTunes online store dominated the music download market, selling over 1 billion songs in its first 3 years. With the launch of the iPhone, Apple continues its Big Think leadership in mobile electronics. Whole Foods Market transformed the supermarket industry in the United States. For decades, supermarkets had competed by selling mediocre food at the lowest price. Profit margins were dwindling, labor troubles were frequent, and double coupon deals were the apex of industry innovation. Scanner technology may have improved inventory and supply chain management, and loyalty cards may have bumped up consumer loyalty for certain items, but neither offered sustainable competitive advantage. Recognizing the emerging trend to buy natural and organic products, Whole Foods CEO John Mackey showed creativity and visionary leadership by tapping into consumers' desire for gourmet products, home cooking, and an emotional connection to their food and health. Between 2002 and 2006, Whole Foods opened 51 new stores and increased sales from approximately $2.7 billion to $5.6 billion. Now, even Walmart has begun to sell organic. IBM was known as the company that made business machines, as indicated by the last 2 letters in its name. So, Lou Gerstner was acting boldly when, in the 1990s, he shifted IBM's business model from computing to a global business services operation. The long-term strategy based on this un-IBM idea has successfully differentiated IBM from low-cost technology suppliers like Dell, as well as traditional computing consulting firms like Hewlett-Packard. Under Gerstner's successor, Sam Palmisano, IBM continues to push aggressively into high-end business consulting services and outsourcing aimed at CEOs and Chief Marketing Officers, CMOs. By the end of 2004, the lasting impact of these bold ideas and actions was apparent. IBM's Global Services Division accounted for 48% of revenue, as opposed to 32% for hardware and 16% for software. Big Think requires vision and leadership. It requires questioning deeply held assumptions about a business or an industry, considering the business or industry from a new angle, and then acting on the new insight. Consider the challenges faced by organizations in the world of beauty products, opera, and online networking, and how Big Think leaders have addressed them. Inspiration, not aspiration. When Silvia Lagnado became Global Brand Director for Dove, Unilever's skincare and beauty brand, in 2001, she was looking for a new approach. "There's no way you can sell beauty without aspirations," they told me, Lagnado said to me. But she believed that she could, by inspiring women to believe in their own beauty. To realize her idea, Lagnado had to challenge some strongly held assumptions within the company, assumptions that the entire beauty industry took for granted. We were obsessed with creating something big. The result? Dove's Campaign for Real Beauty. This bold idea debunked traditional stereotypes by celebrating real women of all ages, sizes, shapes, and colors as the new standards of beauty. The campaign launched in 2004 and went far beyond traditional advertising. Around the world, millions logged on to real beauty websites that expressed how people in different cultures view beauty. In addition to print and TV ads, Dove released a widely viewed, inexpensive YouTube ad spot that showed how beauty advertising distorts our concepts of beauty. Dove Evolution was downloaded nearly 3 million times in 10 days, and thousands included it in their blogs. Dove did not stop at communications. It established the Dove Self-Esteem Fund to raise awareness of the connections between beauty advertising and young girls' self-esteem. Keeping opera alive. The challenge faced by Peter Gelb, new general manager of the Metropolitan Opera of New York City as of 2006, is to keep opera theatrically and musically alive in this century. To do that, Gelb has launched a revolution at the Met. We want to make opera true to what it was at the beginning, which is a marriage of music and theater. Our goal is to popularize opera without diminishing its artistic integrity, said Gelb. Under Gelb's leadership, the Met is changing fast. Gone are the days of the stodgy opera house and its sing and stand style. A new wind is blowing from every direction. In his first year, Gelb launched numerous initiatives to capture a broader audience. The Met struck a deal with Sirius Satellite Radio to broadcast several performances live every week, supplemented by archival performances from the Met's rich broadcast history. Opening night in 2006, a visually striking new Madame Butterfly was broadcast live on a giant screen in Times Square in New York. The cast of a new Barber of Seville production performed the Act I finale on The David Letterman Show. The Met's website was revamped to express its fresh contemporary image. The Met has even gone to the movies, with Saturday matinee performances broadcast live in high definition at select movie theaters across the United States and abroad. Most important, directors of new productions are now chosen according to their experience outside of opera. For instance, in film, theater, dance, and other art forms. And silos are being torn down. Artistic decisions are made jointly among the director, conductor, production, and administrative team. All of this is creating a sense of excitement inside and outside the theater, according to Gelb. Gelb is thinking big about how to establish new connections that shake the dust off the Met and transform the image of opera. In his first season as general manager, Gelb led the Met Opera to the first box office improvement in 6 seasons. 2 lives are better than one. Online social networking has been a huge growth business. LinkedIn is popular among business people, but MySpace has the biggest success story, selling for $580 million to News Corporation in 2005. Yet Philip Rosedale, former Chief Technology Officer of Real Networks, was convinced that there was still money on the table in social networking. Instead of connecting through personal profiles, pages, and friend lists, why not let people meet online, in virtual reality? He founded Linden Lab to create a video game-like environment called Second Life, and left it up to the users to create their worlds. A 3D modeling tool allows residents to build buildings, furniture, vehicles, and machines. There are no aliens, spaceships, dragons, or superheroes. Rosedale guessed that what people wanted was not total fantasy, but another life imaginatively better than their own. Each user gets to create an alter ego, their avatar, and customize themselves as they see fit. Then step forward to explore and meet people in the virtual world. After a quiet rollout in beta version, Second Life took off with a bang, growing exponentially since it grasped media attention in late 2006. Companies entered Second Life to buy ad space. Educators from Harvard University to Ball State set up classrooms for their students. Reuters launched a Second Life news bureau. And Dell even sold your avatar a computer. Residents paid real money to buy Linden dollars that could purchase virtual consumer goods from Dell and other companies in this online world. The future of Second Life is unclear, but the big idea of a virtual world is here to stay. Offline, iPlay hosts of the New York Video 2.0 group, Silicon Alley's entrepreneurs of online video, to keep an eye out for the next big think online. How do we create a big think strategy? Strategy is traditionally viewed as an analytical process, focused heavily on data and rational decision-making. Books and articles on strategic planning offer a familiar list of factors to analyze. For corporate strategy, those include 1. The business environment, political, economic, sociocultural. 2. The 5 forces that impact strategy in a competitive context: customer behavior, bargaining power, competitive forces, threats of new entrants or products, and intensity of competitive rivalry. See the classic strategy model by Michael Porter. 3. technology forces. 4. The resources and competence of the firm. And 5. The resources and competence of suppliers, customers, partners, allies, outsourcers, and other third parties that the firm can leverage. These are not bad considerations, but using this kind of approach alone would not have produced IBM's, Dove's, or the Met's innovative strategies. For IBM, a situation analysis of this sort performed in the late 1980s would have surely indicated that competition was intensifying and that IBM could not grow or even survive by relying on computers alone. But then what? What could IBM do next? Similarly, for Dove circa 2000, the data and analyses would have indicated that Dove is a well-established brand with limited growth. Then what? Launch another brand of soap or shampoo? Analyses for the Met, as well as other classical music businesses in the early years of the new century, showed declining visitors and a lack of connection to younger audiences. Then what? Lower your prices for younger audiences? I have been in meetings with technology firms, beauty and cosmetic firms, and classical music organizations that struggled with these challenges. Using traditional market research and strategic analyses for what they are worth, and not getting sidetracked by them, is only part of the challenge. Yes, research and analysis may yield a valid diagnosis of the situation, but the real strategic issue is how to develop new and bold ideas to address the situation, and how, then, to implement these bold ideas. Think back in time to the Trojan War and Odysseus's big idea. The Trojan horse was a brilliant strategy and brought Greek victory overnight after 10 years of small think stalemate. This was big think. The Greeks knew that the Trojans loved their horses. Why not give them the gift of a horse? A huge wooden steed that could conceal a few soldiers who, once inside the city, could fling wide the gates. Would traditional military analysis have ever factored in the passions of an entire rival organization to conceive such a brilliant and radical maneuver? Probably not. No doubt the Greek general Agamemnon, like a well-trained executive, spent many a night looking at the numbers and doing analyses. Troop levels, battalion formations, food supply lines, the height of the walls of Troy, wind and weather factors. But Agamemnon's battlefield analysis only led to tactical shifts in the standard siege strategy that the Greeks had employed for a decade to no avail. It took big thinker Odysseus to break the stalemate in that epic battle. Let me be clear. Asking questions and collecting data about markets, competition, customers, technology, and the like should be part of the strategy process. But data, spreadsheets, and analytical charts are mostly reactive tools that illuminate the past. They cannot envision strategies directed inherently toward the future. They are good for diagnosing problems, not for creating big ideas and powerful solutions. Strategists at all levels seem to follow the mantra, as long as we do the right analysis, as long as we spend months in meetings doing SWOTs, number crunching, and traditional strategy maps, as long as dozens of consultants parade through the organization producing thousands of PowerPoint slides, as long as we do all that, a big idea and a long-term sustainable strategy will, somehow magically at the end of the tunnel, emerge. Most of the time this is just wishful thinking, because there is more to strategy than just analysis. Bold ideas that change markets do not emerge from rote analyses that we perform like robots and that any competitor could do just as well. In fact, standard strategic planning, which occurs at every level in the organization, follows a predictable process and virtually shuts out big thinking. Standard strategic planning, with its procedures, planning sheets, and analytical decision tools, with its endless meetings, buy-in procedures, and politics, sucks the juice out of any exciting idea, if it allows it to come to the surface at all. Knowing that anything too out of the box will not be approved by boxed-in thinkers. Most executives censor their own ideas and do not even throw their big ones into the strategy planning pot. After all, in most strategic planning efforts, mediocrity is rewarded because it seems solid, builds on the status quo, and stretches one's imagination just a little bit. In these cases, small think prevails. Once again, that does not mean that traditional strategic planning is all useless. Detailed analytical thinking can be valuable and is necessary at times. It is needed to aim for and achieve a clearly defined goal. It is needed to perfect clearly delineated tasks. However, without big think, strategic planning is limited. It lacks broader meaning and purpose. Worse, it becomes an impediment to visionary thinking. It preserves the status quo. Formulating and implementing big think strategy. To generate bold and breakthrough strategies, strategic planning needs an alternative approach. It needs an approach that harnesses creativity to challenge conventional wisdom. It must transform the models that decision-makers already have in their heads. Such an approach starts with idea sourcing. Rather than benchmark competitors within our industry, we must go against the mainstream and look for new ideas outside our own industry. We must question some long-held but outdated assumptions, the sacred cows of a business. Rather than doing idea sourcing only internally, we must connect with customers in original ways and engage them to provide deep insights for our business. The new ideas that we collect must then be evaluated and turned into a strategy. Throughout this process, we must avoid watering down big ideas. Operational factors and feasibility of the approach must be key considerations, to be sure, but we must remain focused on the big picture. The end goal must be a simple and powerful idea that creates new customer value. For example, for the iPhone, it was creating a user-friendly and cool mobile entertainment product. For Whole Foods, natural food with an emotional connection. For MySpace, building a powerful community. Moreover, the idea must leverage organizational capabilities and connect the organization to other businesses and the entire market ecosystem. Yet, Big Think strategy is not only about strategy formulation, it is also about strategy implementation. Big Think ideas must be clearly conveyed to employees and executed. The entire organization must be focused on Big Think. This requires leadership and processes that sustain the Big Think beyond a one-shot project. And that is the toughest task of all. Centering an organization on the core idea at the corporate, functional, and operational level. Shaking up GE and Samsung. When Jeffrey Immelt replaced Jack Welch as chairman and chief executive of General Electric in September 2001, he had big shoes to fill. Under Welch, GE was renowned for its focus on the bottom line and getting rid of managers who did not meet financial goals. While Immelt inherited one of the world's most successful companies, he also inherited an organization steeped in Six Sigma that did not encourage taking risks and thinking big. Immelt believed that GE would continue to grow only by developing new products and innovations, not by cost-cutting and streamlining operations. This new approach included taking risks that could revolutionize the company. To do this, he had to tackle the very culture of the company. So what exactly has Immelt done to change the process and measurement-oriented company into a creative powerhouse? He started with a fundamental structure change in how managers and employees worked. Where in the past, GE had a history of promoting from within, Immelt brought in outsiders with different ideas and perspectives, not only from other industries, but also from diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds, to reflect the international scope of the organization. For existing employees, Immelt encouraged managers to be passionate experts in their industries, rather than expert managers who frequently moved between business units. He also fostered a culture of customer orientation. To iMelt, great managers were customer-focused marketers, not just great operators. The expectations of managers also changed. Under iMelt, every leader must come up with at least 3 imagination breakthroughs each year that are judged by a council made up of senior sales and marketing executives. And this is not small think stuff. Each breakthrough is expected to get GE into a new line of business, geographic area, or customer segment, and must have the potential for at least $100 million in growth. Ideas judged to be worthy receive billions of dollars in future funding. Many executives were leery of such fundamental change, but they are coming around. Business leaders have developed idea jams for generating ideas with people from diverse business groups. GE also instituted a virtual idea box, where employees at all levels can propose new ideas via the company intranet. A similar organizational transformation is taking place at Samsung. Not long ago, Samsung was known worldwide for manufacturing memory chips, cheap household appliances, and low-quality consumer electronics. In the mid-1990s, Samsung chairman Kun-hee Lee set out to reposition the company as a cutting-edge designer of high-quality products, particularly electronics. To show that he was serious and that Samsung would stop releasing substandard products, in 2000, Lee arranged for a public burning of $50 million worth of defective cell phones at a plant in Gumi, a town in central South Korea. Within 10 years, Samsung has become a global force in consumer electronics, surpassing competitors in the minds of many customers. Samsung employees now communicate and interact with each other very differently. Isolated departments and strict hierarchies have evolved into cross-functional teams with new processes that empower employees and allow them to bring new products to the market faster. At Samsung, we are committed to thinking big about the entire industry and the innovation that will lead it. DJ Oh, CEO of Samsung Electronics North America, told me. Over the last 10 years, we have made amazing progress, especially in the U.S. market, and we are not yet done. Our new focus is not just about using great engineering to build new products. It is about tapping into the customer's experience with a great brand through creativity. We call it the creative management, and it is our new big thinking for the next decade. The 6 strategy tasks of Big Think. In sum, the goal of Big Think strategy is to leverage bold ideas and leave small thinking behind. Moreover, we must create the organizational structures and processes to support individual projects and keep the organization focused on Big Think. The Big Think strategy process consists of 6 interrelated tasks. The first 3 tasks concern strategy formulation. 1. Sourcing new ideas. 2. Evaluating the ideas. 3. Turning the ideas into a Big Think strategy. The following 3 tasks concern strategy implementation. 4. Executing Big Think. 5. Leading Big Think. And 6. Sustaining Big Think in the organization. While the strategy and implementation tasks may seem familiar, Big Think offers a unique approach, incorporating new methodologies and tools for each of the 6 tasks. To remain focused on Big Think, we must employ this approach and not fall back into a small think mentality. 1. Sourcing new ideas. Small think strategic planning tries to source new ideas solely by analyzing a host of market and competitive factors. But for Big Think, sourcing really new ideas requires that we go far beyond this simple analytical toolbox. The creative tools used as part of Big Think idea sourcing are all about seeking new connections. We must find new associations by connecting seemingly unrelated concepts. We must benchmark outside our industry, not only within. Question long-held assumptions, the sacred cows of a business, and step out of the time frame of the present. We must strip down our business strategy to its very core to get more radical ideas. Most important, We cannot source ideas only from within the organization. We must include customers in the idea sourcing process. 2. Evaluating the ideas. Effective idea sourcing should generate multiple ideas, which then must be evaluated before we choose which to pursue. Smallthink asks a small number of decision-makers within the organization to evaluate new ideas according to their familiarity and similarity to past initiatives, but never asks whether the idea will radically impact the business. To remain focused on Big Think, we should cluster and evaluate new ideas first in terms of their potential for lasting impact and whether they will change markets. Only then should we ask whether new ideas are doable. Ideally, the evaluation process should be as broad as possible, not only including expert decision-makers. 3. Turning the ideas into a Big Think strategy. Too often, a strategic brief gets bogged down in corporate mission speak, irrelevant data, and linear strategy maps, until the core idea is diluted by small think. Instead, Big Think demands that you capture your bold ideas in a crisp image that you further develop using the 4 Big Think strategy quadrants. 1. Organizational capabilities required. 2. Opportunities and challenges in the business networks. 3. The customer value created by the strategy. And 4. The role of the market ecosystem in bringing it to life. The strategy development process of Big Think resembles the score of a Mahler symphony. You are weaving your bold ideas into a dynamic whole that provides a clear plan for achieving your goals. 4. Executing Big Think. With small think, even the best new strategy can get bogged down in the execution. Inertia slows the launch. The rollout is divided between silos, manufacturing, marketing, service, that never communicate, and the customer is nowhere to be found. Executing a Big Think strategy demands tremendous effort. It can feel as if you have to pull a ship over a mountain. Rather than getting buy-in from your employees, you must tap into their dreams. Rather than wasting time on aligning the entire organization perfectly around the strategy, you must organize flexibly. Finally, you must attract your customers' attention through bold communications. 5. Leading Big Think. Big Think requires leadership. It cannot succeed with small think's aversion to risk and focus on short-term results. Leaders at various levels of the organization must have the guts to take on the Big Think project, the passion to stand behind it, and the perseverance to see it through to ultimate success. Otherwise, you may just as well let robots do the work. Big Think leaders have a broad view of how to instill fundamental change. They do not just have a plan, they have an agenda. To stay motivated on the way, they consult a diverse group of experts and move in different circles in their professional and social lives. And finally, 6. Sustaining Big Think in the organization. The ultimate challenge of Big Think is not just to set up one successful Big Think project, but to implant Big Think into the organizational tissue. For that to happen, we must break down small think's organizational silos to assume an interdisciplinary mindset. Moreover, employees must view work as play and play as work, and be entrepreneurial. We need employees who are what I call big thinky heads. These are people who radiate a childlike excitement about new ideas. To keep them excited, we constantly expose them to new information that is relevant to their projects and stimulates their thoughts. Build the Trojan horse. Swiss 168, somewhere over Uzbekistan. I am still haunted by my conversation with the consultants. On the plane, I am trying to relax and get some sleep, but I still hear them. Don't you have some methodologies and tools? We have a tough time thinking big. Give us some tools that we can use. As I doze off, I see images of Greek soldiers pulling an enormous ship over a mountain, I hear march music, landliers, waltzes, yet those sounds are distorted, full of angst. Suddenly, there it is, the gigantic wooden horse, carrying the Greek soldiers in its belly. As though from a distance, barely audible at first, then increasing in volume, then pounding my ears, I hear a chant. Build the Trojan horse! Build the Trojan horse! I wake up, soaked in sweat, feeling the calling in my bones. Build the Trojan horse! Build the Trojan horse! Ich muss es bauen. This book is my answer to this calling. I invite you to join me.